Pastor, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. How many of you have regrets in life? Raise your hand. I do. Let me ask you this. What is the single biggest regret in your life? I want you to think about that. Take a second and think about that. What is the biggest thing you regret in life? Was it something you said to somebody? Or was it something you did? Maybe it was something you didn't do. Or maybe there's more than one thing that you regret. Well, whatever it is, tonight I have 4 stories to share with you. And if you can remember these 4 stories, I promise you that never again will you regret anything in life. The first story took place in Alaska a couple of years back. There was a young couple, and they were in love, and they got married. One thing led to another, and she got pregnant. It tends to happen. But when it came time for her to give birth to the child, she went into a very difficult childbirth. And unfortunately, she died. But she left behind a baby boy for the husband. And for a long time, the husband had to work and also take care of the baby at home. So it was almost impossible to do both. So he came up with an idea. He trained a dog to care for the baby. And this dog was a very, very smart, very faithful, a very clever dog. He was able to change the diapers on the baby. He would hold the milk bottle in its mouth to feed the baby milk. It's pretty amazing if you can see it. A very valuable dog. And one day the owner, the husband, had to go to another village for his work. And he instructed the dog that he'd be back late in the evening. So he instructed the dog to take extra care of the baby, do all the feeding, etc. And lo and behold, there's a blizzard that sweeps through Alaska and leaves him stranded in the other village. And he couldn't come home until the next evening. But he started getting worried about the baby and the dog. So long, no food, what's going to happen? But eventually, he makes it back the next evening. And when he walks into his house, the dog, upon hearing its owner returning, rushes to the door and barks at the owner to greet him. So the owner opens the door in the house, and he sees blood on the floor. He sees blood on the bed, no baby. He looks back at the dog. In the dog's mouth, blood on the chest fur of the dog, blood all over. And he figures out what happened. The dog must have, out of hunger, just eaten the baby. So this threw him into an intense rage. And he grabbed a knife from the kitchen, went over to the dog, and just killed it right on the spot. And just after he did that, he hears the sound of his baby babbling. And then he sees the baby crawl out from under the bed. It was hiding. And then he looks back at the dog. He notices that the hind leg of the dog was partially torn off. And then that's when he spotted in the far corner of the room the body of a dead wolf. When he looked in the mouth of the dead wolf, he saw a patch of dog fur that belonged to his dog. And that's when he realized that the dog risked its life to protect the baby. And in return, he killed it. That's when he realized that, oh. So a simple misunderstanding like that led to an intense emotional reaction, which led to him doing something that he regretted deeply for the rest of his life. Intense emotional reactions, dangerous, especially anger, which leads me to the next story about a young boy who had a temper problem, who had an anger problem. He would throw fits and throw tantrums over the smallest things. Amazing. He's only 5 years old. So his father, noticing his problem, gives him a box of push pins one day and tells him, "Boy, every time you throw a tantrum, I want you to take one of these push pins, go to the backyard, and stick it into the wooden fence. Now, how many of you have tried to stick pins into solid wood before? It's very hard. It's very hard. It takes a lot of strength. So the first day that the boy had the box of push pins, there were 37 pins on the fence in the back. But gradually, there would be less and less each day. And eventually the boy realized that, hey, it's easier to, if I can control my temper than to have to go back there and push one of these pins into the fence. And until one day, he finally caught himself. He caught his own temper tantrum before it actually happened, and he noticed it. He immediately went to his father and said, Dad, I was able to stop myself from throwing a fit before it happened. And his dad said, good. Now you can begin to take out the pins. From now on, every time you catch yourself wanting to throw a tantrum, but before it happens, you may go back there to the fence and pull one of those pins out. So a few more days pass. Eventually, all the pins are gone. All the pins are cleared from the fence. He's excited. The boy's excited. He goes to his father and says, Dad, the pins are gone. Look. And his dad says, good. You did a very good job, boy. Now come with me. He takes him back to the backyard, back right by the fence, bends down, and explains to the boy, you see these holes in the fence? These holes that you cause when you push those pins into the wood? Well, these holes are going to be there forever. It's not going to restore to its original condition. These holes are permanent. And when you're angry, the words you say to another person or the things that you do to another person is like taking a knife and sticking it into that person. Now, the wound in the person may heal, and the person may even forgive you. But there's always going to be a mark, a permanent scar that you leave behind. So whenever you're angry, think about that. Think about the things, the harm you can do. The third story is about controlling your impulses to jump into action, to rush into action. And this tends to happen when you're angry, when you're impatient, you tend to rush into action. This story is about slowing down, stopping yourself, taking time before you take action. It's about a large company who hired a new department head to help oversee the performance of this new department. They wanted to make the department more efficient and more effective. And this new guy, was a reputable guy, a very capable guy. And all the people in the department were kind of nervous. You know, whenever these people come here, these corporate guys, they're going to cut people. So the employees started getting nervous. But within a week, all the employees noticed, hey, this guy is pretty soft. He's pretty passive. He stays in his office all day, doesn't do much. He takes so many trips to the coffee counter, makes coffee for himself, chats with people, doesn't seem to do anything. And the people who were nervous in the beginning started talking amongst themselves. I think this guy's here because he's about to retire. This is a cushy job. He's waiting for his pension plan to come into effect or something. Oh, he's harmless. He's old. So they started letting their guard down. The people who were nervous were not nervous anymore. Those employees that were bad, those who were leaving work early, billing personal items to the company, etc., they started getting worse because there was no one to enforce them, no one to police them. And this just went on for 4 months. 4 months later, the company as a whole started getting, the upper management started to worry about this guy. This new guy is not doing anything, and they were considering removing him from office. But just as they were going to do something, he asserts his authority. And he says that he's going to keep those employees who add value to the company and cut those who don't. And in one day, he's cut 25% of the department. It was almost like he became a different person. At the annual company dinner, which followed, the upper management asked him to speak. And the first thing he said to the company was, "My fellow colleagues,